Content warning. Some themes and subjects in this video might be distressing to some viewers. Remember that these videos are meant to be part of a fun, spooky series. If you are easily scared, grossed out, or do not like horror stories, please watch at your discretion. Hey everyone, it's Gloria, Shuri, Henry, and welcome to the finale of Glow in the Dark, and it's episode 4. The story is done by me, but more importantly, the art is done by Akinat, aka Rachel. I really can't wait for you to see the detail in her work and hear my story for the first time. My story is inspired by stuff that has happened in real life, but obviously not to the extent that you'll see. But just keep in mind, remember the disclaimer that I said in the beginning. This is something very different to anything I've ever done before. It is a little bit violent. This can be a little bit dark. So I hope that you keep that in mind when you're watching. So grab your snacks, get cozy, grab a blankie, and enjoy the spookies that are coming your way. Woo. Stargazing with my friends on Friday nights was the highlight of my week. My best friend Mel would drive us to a new location in the hills each time, always choosing a quiet place away from the loud traffic and bright lights. We loved how serene our surroundings were while we stared up at the stars. We'd talk about anything and everything, from how we were handling our college courses, people who broke our hearts, and the various jobs we desperately wanted to quit. Having intimate conversations like these, without judgment, was somehow easier in the dark. It was almost impossible to appreciate simple things like this since we lived in a busy city. This trip would be different than our countless trips before, because we mustered up the courage to go ghost hunting for the first time. Have you ever gone ghost hunting with your friends before? That is something I would like to know from you all, because I've definitely done it, and this is based off of stuff we would do, minus the stuff that's coming later. Yeah, something we do, and it was scary every time, although we were fearless, because we were very young. Have you ever done it? Would you be too scared? Leave a comment below, obviously, because I want to know. An online forum, which was a breeding ground for anonymous arguments, had a thread about a place in the hills not too far from the areas we frequented. What caught our eye, however, was that regardless of what people believed the history of the place was, each user agreed that it was haunted. So naturally, we thought this would be the perfect place to explore. When we satisfied the need to complain about our day-to-day lives, we anxiously gathered up our belongings and packed them into Mel's car for the next part of the night. As we drove through the hills to our location, I thought back to a couple of weeks ago when Mel, Sam, and Arthur came over to research urban legends based in our city. Sadly, none of the stories stuck out to us. Werewolves, vampires, and Bigfoot stomping his way through town seemed too unrealistic. We grew bored of the cheesy stories, and our conversation evolved into one about paranormal experiences. Mel had seen a woman on fire in her parents' kitchen in the middle of the night. Arthur saw a face staring at him with a wide grin through his bedroom window, and one time, a shadow figure floated towards Sam in an alleyway that disappeared before her eyes. I shared an experience that happened a few days after my aunt died. I was trying to fall asleep when my bed started to shake. I thought one of my siblings was trying to annoy me. I grabbed my pillow, turned over, and yelled, "Stop it!" as I tried to smack them with it. No one was there. Not long after, something loud crashed against my bed. It was as though someone took my textbooks and slammed them against my headboard. I was so startled that I raced out of the room, and to my surprise, my family was sitting together and watching a movie. Despite my protests, my parents insisted that my siblings were with them the whole time. My mom said it was my aunt watching over me, and that it should comfort me, but I found everything about this unsettling. When I got back to my room, nothing was out of place. So before we move on to the next part, I just thought I'd share that that happened to me after one of my aunts passed away. Not long after, I was in my room and that happened. Like, something slammed against my bed. I thought it was my keyboard at my computer, and everything was where it was supposed to be. I was brought out of my memories and back to reality when Mel went over a bump in the road. Trying to reorient myself to my surroundings, I looked outside of my window and rolled it down. The wind was rushing in, the crisp night air caressed my face and drowned out the music in the car. When we were deeper into the hills, the music started to cut out, and the road became narrower. The trees started to grow taller, fuller, and closed in over us. I could sense that everyone was scared, but none of us asked to turn the car around. A few minutes later, we arrived just outside of a gated area. I stepped out of the car, watching my step as I blinked to help my eyes adjust to the darkness surrounding us. I could almost make out the shape of a small, white building about 100 yards away. We moved past the no trespassing sign, walked up the hill, and completely ignored that we were on someone's private property. I personally would never, if there was a no trespassing sign, I would never cross it. I'd be too scared of what I would see, who I would see or run into, and especially at nighttime, I would never, ever do something like this. It's terrifying, and, I think for the most part, I'm a rule follower. If you tell me not to go somewhere, I'm not going to go there. For my safety and everyone else's. I think. I don't remember what I was like at 19, 18. It was annoying, I'm sure. But anyway, moving on. And also safe to say that the rest of this is completely 100% fiction. The building itself, surprisingly, looks like a quaint little cottage, untouched by the environment. Someone could have been living there had I not known it was abandoned. The atmosphere was more ominous the closer we got. Mist enveloped us, and the stench of something rotting overwhelmed my senses. I stumbled over what I thought was a rock, but was actually the skull of an animal. I covered my mouth with the sleeve of my jacket and tried to hold in a gag. Getting inside was easier than I thought. Sam was brave enough to turn the doorknob, and the door swung right open. However, inside the cottage was not as welcoming as its exterior. It looked like it had been empty for years. The floors were blanketed in mud, and rooms were torn down to the beams. When I looked up, I saw that the ceiling was coated with mold, and it looked as though it could fall onto us at any minute. Graffiti scattered across windowless, ivy-covered walls. One area looked like a child's room, decorated with a broken rocking horse, and a crib fallen on its side. Another looked like a Victorian bathroom, with a clawfoot tub and a rusted faucet. Once grand but now tattered paintings clung perilously onto the walls, with deep claw marks preventing any chance of us making out what once adorned the canvases. Despite a number of rooms, there appeared to be only one door, the one we entered through. Sam called us over to the back of the building. In what I suspected to be the dining room, a collapsed table was firmly planted on the ground, with broken chairs scattered around it. In the corner of the room, Arthur lit candles on top of a Persian rug. We did what any amateur group of ghost hunters would do and called out for signs from spirits. Arthur even carelessly demanded that chairs be thrown at us. Mel brought some salt with her, so she poured a circle around us for protection after that. After 20 minutes of enthusiastic and hopeful efforts, there was nothing. I was, however, both thankful and disappointed that we hadn't witnessed anything. But before I could ask if there was something different we could try, Arthur pulled a spirit board out of his backpack. What would you do if your friend brought a spirit board from his backpack? Would you punch him in the face? If your friend was like, hey, we're in a haunted place, no trespassing sign, this place somehow looks like an old Victorian building. Look at these rich people paintings in this tiny little building. Here's the spirit board. The answer is no. If it was me now, absolutely not. Back then, fearless for some reason, probably would have done it. Not gonna lie, I probably would have done it. We might as well. We want answers, don't we? Arthur asked. None of us disagreed as we placed our fingers on the planchette. The candles started to flicker and were about to burn out. We spun the planchette in 3 circles, greeted anyone listening to us, and Mel asked, Where are you? The planchette moved across the board as it spelled D-O-O-R. Each of us swore that we purposefully didn't move it. The floor rumbled beneath me. Startled, my friends scrambled to their feet. I quickly joined them. I spun around to look up, and the ceiling at the front of the building caved in, narrowly missing us. The path to the door was gone. No one was hurt, but there was no way out. We all started to panic. I reached into my pocket and took my phone out, trying to get reception. The others looked for any crawl spaces, cracks, or gaps in the walls, but it was no use. We were trapped. I felt my head spin and my heart race as I heard Sam starting to cry while Arthur yelled for help. Mel ran to the pile of rubble covering the door and attempted to dig a way out. "This is all your fault," Sam cried. "We all agreed to use the spirit board," Arthur replied. They shouted over one another. In the heat of the moment, Arthur stepped aggressively towards Sam. Sam stood her ground. I got in between them before they did something they'd regret. At that moment, Arthur's eyes grew wide, and his face became pale. He lifted his arm, pointing towards the direction behind us. Our candles went out, and we were plunged into darkness. I think that the only appropriate reaction to being plunged into darkness would be screaming. I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. I reached out aimlessly, squinting my eyes, and managed to grab onto Sam and Arthur. We huddled together and then realized we couldn't see Mel. We called out for her frantically, and a chill went down my spine as I saw a dark figure slowly appear from the shadows. It was Mel. She hovered toward us, the tips of her shoes scraping across the ground, with her arms spread at her sides, her eyes glowing like embers. Her body started to contort. I could hear her bones crack and could see her skin blister. She let out a dissonant scream as her flesh was torn and her body shifted beneath it. I felt like I was sinking into the ground while Sam and Arthur tried to pull me away, but all I could do was stare at her as I watched her body change. Mel transformed into a woman on fire. Sam and Arthur screamed as they tried to escape, but there was no way out. I could not move. The woman hovered over to them in a single blink. They cried for help. They called out my name, and I did nothing. I could not save them. I tried to close my eyes, but I was forced to watch as she tore them limb from limb. I felt helpless as I tried to break free from whatever held me back. When she finished, she slowly turned her head in my direction, grinning wide with a mouth full of sharp teeth. She slowly hovered towards me until she gazed directly into my eyes. I felt as though my blood boiled, and I felt my hair and skin starting to burn as she slowly moved her hands closer and closer to my face. I felt hopeless, useless, and was about to meet my end. Her ghoulish smile grew wider as she saw the pain in my eyes. She knew I was going to give up and was ready to accept my fate. Suddenly, a deafening boom permeated through the building. Mel, this woman, looked surprised as a shadow unexpectedly appeared from behind, latched onto her, and started to pull her out of Mel's body. The entity resisted as hard as she could in an attempt to release herself from the shadow's grasp, while she shrieked and clawed at me. As this happened, I saw Mel emerging out of the woman's possession. She was weak as she cried for my help and begged me to save her. I fought as hard as I could, and I was released from what held me in place and lunged forward to grab Mel's hands. I held on as tight as I could, but I felt her start to slip through my fingers. In a last attempt to keep their hold on her, the woman dug her claws into Mel's arms, scraping at her skin like nails on a chalkboard. I forcefully pulled one more time and finally ripped Mel away from her grip. The shadow encompassed the woman, put out her flames and rapidly pulled her back into the darkness. Her arms thrashed and reached for us until she disappeared. Everything was still for a moment. I shook my head, trying to make sense of what happened. I turned to check on Mel just as she collapsed into my arms. "What happened? Where are Sam and Arthur?" Mel asked as her voice broke. I tried to keep her from looking for them, but she fought me off and fell to her knees at the sight of their lifeless bodies. I couldn't help but blame myself. This was my fault. I could tell Mel felt the same. Besides her grief, I could see loathing in her eyes. We would never be the same after this. After what felt like an eternal night, I woke up with the sun shining on my face. I didn't realize that I had fallen asleep. I looked around hoping to see Sam and Arthur alive. I hoped that this was just a vivid nightmare and the four of us would leave together. But as I took in our surroundings, I saw that Mel was on her knees, sobbing where Sam and Arthur died. I quickly stood up and was about to make my way towards her, but what I saw stopped me in my tracks. Sam and Arthur's bodies weren't there. The ceiling was back in its place, and the path to the door was clear. And that was my story. What did you think? I know it's very dark. I just wanted to try something different, so I really hope you enjoyed it despite it being very dark. But I did warn you. I think that for me, happy endings like in a Disney movie or even a scary movie, or if I know that there's characters going through something, I'm attached to them. I want them to have a happy ending. But here I just wanted to like flip it and see what it was like. So I really hope that you enjoyed this story from me. If not, lie to me, because I'm a crybaby. And of course I've never written anything like this before. Everything has been a sketch or like an outline of something funny or improvised, and I just wanted to bring out the part of me that was just like, that loved all the dark and scary stuff. That is, of course, fiction. I talk about how much I love scary movies, but when have you ever actually seen me do anything other than like Tita Auntie staying overnight in York in a 600-year-old house? Other than that, I don't think I've done anything actually scary on this channel. Yeah, it's a little project of mine. And what did you think of Glow in the Dark in general? What did you think of Rachel's incredible drawing? One of the things I love the most about this series is the diversity in the characters, and it makes me so happy because different body shapes, different ethnicities, different types of people, and it just makes me so happy that I get to use my platform to do that. I'm not saying that other people don't, but it's what I want. Even in a short 4-episode series, I wanted to make sure that people like me were represented in it, even if my story had a particularly sad ending. But yeah, this is it. Happy Halloween, everyone. It is midnight now in the UK. By the time you're watching this, we get an extra hour of Halloween because this is when our clocks change. Not that you needed to know that, but I'm very happy about it. Again, thank you so much to Rachel, aka Akinaut, for creating the beautiful illustrations you saw throughout this video. Thank you to Landon for creating the logo. Landon for creating the logo. And if you want behind the scenes stuff, if you want commentary free versions of these videos, the worst prompts I think actually went to Rachel. So if you want to see the ugly art prompts, go to my Kofi. There's a link in the description. Join the Glow in the Dark Plus membership and you will have all of that available to you. There has been stuff uploading every week, so that's cute. But if you want to even do a one-time tip because you enjoy this series so much, please feel free to leave me a tip on Kofi via Kofi. Please let me know what you thought of this series in the comments, in the actual comment section. I know people were at the premiere, hopefully. I hope people will be at the premiere. But please leave an actual comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you for Vlogmas. That's gonna be the next main thing on this channel. I think I just committed to Vlogmas via this video. Thank you all so much again. Links in the description below to everything. And join us on Twitch. Also, Twitch. Good thing, fun thing, Monday through Thursday. And I hope you all have an amazing, amazing Halloween. Talk to you guys later. Bye.